Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glen Sutherland.
Well, welcome to a new episode of Canadian Investing in the U.S. with Glen Sutherland. This week, I have two guests, and Mena's been here before, but we got Filomena and Rocky Maimone. Both of you, if you want, I don't know who wants to go first, but if you want to just kind of introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there.
Sure. My name is Filomena Maimone, and this is my mom, Rocky. And I'm the founding attorney of Maimone Legal. My mom, Rocky, is everything to do with business and the management of our firm. And we had the pleasure of getting to know Glen over this past, I think it's been a year and a half, Glen, that we've known each other, maybe.
Maybe a little bit longer because of the business plan and stuff like that. But I think I've had these guys got me my visa and my social security number about a year and a half or so ago.
Yeah. And so we've had the pleasure of working with Glen and a lot of people that he knows, and we're everything immigration. So a lot of our clients end up being Canadian because we're Canadian too, born and raised in Ontario. And we made the move to Florida about 8 years ago. And so a lot of our clients are Canadian just because we can relate to them and we know exactly what they're going to go through, and helping them with really any of their immigration needs. We also do estate planning, business law. So if you need a lawyer, we're the people to go to.
That's an interesting question. I think we talked about this briefly. Estate planning, do I have to do estate planning if I'm Canadian, or do I just do my estate planning and all that stuff in Canada? Or should I be doing it in both countries?
Well, if you're going to be spending a lot of time in the United States, particularly if you're going to be in Florida, for example, it's
Yeah.
good that you have it done in Canada, but it's helpful to also have it done in the state that you're going to be living in, just
Okay.
because you don't want any contradictions or any issues should something happen to you while you're here.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we'll kind of jump into this. As you guys can tell, these are my immigration attorneys that helped me get my visa. So, I think a lot of people, it depends on different. I can't talk, but people want to move to the U.S. And if people wanted to do this, I think one of the common ways, especially as real estate investors or even people who are business owners, they're typically looking at an E2 visa. So
That's
maybe
correct.
maybe talk about the E2 visa and maybe just like some basics on what they would need in order to be able to qualify to get an E2 visa. Just because I think there's a lot of misinformation.
A ton. Sure, I'd love to clarify that. So E2 is an investor visa, like Glenn said, and there's generally three requirements. Okay. The first is a substantial investment. So we're looking at an investment of $100,000 or more. I have seen people do it for less, but it's generally advisable to aim for the $100,000 mark. The second is that the funds have to be at risk. That means that before we can apply for your visa, we have to actually see you spend the money. So whether that be on startup expenses or the purchase of an existing business, those funds actually have to be spent before we can apply. And the third requirement is source of funds. So we need to narrow down where the money came from. Did it come from, your life savings, from your property, from a, inheritance, a gift, wherever that money came from? We need to be able to explain that. So if you can satisfy those three requirements, particularly the $100,000 spend, then we can get you your E2 visa. And we've seen this done with property management type of businesses that, Glenn would get involved in helping you to figure out how to invest properly in the United States. And then we could help you where you would be able to kind of structure a property management based type of business and be able to get your E2. The beautiful thing about E2 is that you get a social security number. So even if you're not planning on moving to the US, it's always great to have your social security number. You can build credit, you can have access to better loans. You can choose at any time if you and your family want to move to the US and stay here more on a long-term basis. The visa is initially good for 5 years, so that gives you a lot of time. It's renewable for 2-year increments after that. So E2 is our most popular visa that we see Canadians pursuing for those reasons. Another awesome part of it is that the spouse of the principal applicant, so whoever the investor is, the spouse of that person gets an open work permit, and any kids under 21 get to come to the US and go to school. So it's a great visa to have. Been on it personally. Rocky's been on it. So Glenn's on it. So it's a great We're all on it. Great
So I
visa.
know like, even for me, like, and even when I was planning to get my visa, the part that I think is the scary part was the pre-spend of the money. Like, so you're spending and you're building the business beforehand, and then people are just like terrified. They're like, what if I did this and then I don't get the business? Have you seen many people go through and actually, run, do what they're told to do, and set up the business, and then not get their visa?
Are you interested in investing in the US? I honestly see Canadians making tons of mistakes, simple mistakes that could be avoided by just a quick phone call. Honestly, I think we should just get on a 15-minute call. You ask me some questions, I answer some questions, and I tell you a little bit about the coaching program. We see if it's a fit. My coaching program is completely different than other people's. What my goal is to help you actually implement the material. All the videos are pre-recorded, so you can just zip through those on your own time. But when you're actually buying property, this is what sets me apart, is that we actually sit down, you do your deal analysis, you have questions, ask me some questions. Let me go through it with you. Let me help you. And this is what's going to set it apart. This is why you're going to avoid mistakes. You're going to miss those little things that you just missed that could cost you a lot of money. Maybe I can see it. Maybe my experience. I've been doing this for a while down in the US. Let me help you. Let's do a quick 15-minute call. If that's of interest to you, go to glensutherland.com and you can book a 15-minute call. Anyway, hope this is helpful. Thanks, everyone.
So we have 100% approval rate, which means we've never had a denial. And I haven't seen any other attorney offer this, but we offer a money back guarantee. So if I can't get you your visa, your E2 visa, I will give you all of your attorney fees back. I have not, so I've seen other people who have worked with other kind of shady attorneys not get their visa approved right away and have to jump through hoops. But I haven't seen an outright, actually in line. I've seen one denial. And they actually forwarded me the petition that was done by another attorney. And it was horrible. And so I was immediately able to see what we can do to change that, have them reinvest. They had to invest more. So the investment wasn't substantial enough. There wasn't evidence of any of the things that were required. So I've seen it once. We can definitely help anyone who has had a bad experience and get them that approval.
So say like depending on what kind of business you're kind of setting up and say you were planning on building a property management company, but you kind of already bought some properties or, spent some money already on other things. Will that count or can you use any of that spend you've already done?
So let's use the example of property management. I'll kind of walk you through what does count.
Okay.
The actual purchase of the property itself looks good, but it's not going to count towards your ultimate spend. What's going to count towards the spend is physical office location, for example, inventory, equipment, marketing that you've already spent on. Any reasonable startup expense that makes sense to a property management type of business would count towards your spend. So if you've already incurred some expenses and they're in the US, we can use that. If it's usually within the last year, I like to say we can use it towards your E2.
Okay. The problem might be is if you've been doing this for a long time and it may have been
that
old expensive.
cut it off at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, okay. So what kind of questions do you often get from people that are concerned about being able to get a visa, like, or where the concern is?
I think they're afraid because they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Everything is foreign to them. And that's when we have a consultation, I think, when I can see their faces at the beginning of the consultation, they're like, where do I start? What do I do? They have all these questions. And I'm like, okay, let me explain to you how it works. We'll go through your questions. And at the end, it's like a sigh of relief. Now I know what to do. Like I have a team that I can trust. And it's really our job to walk them through all the steps. It's not their job. So what does that mean? We provide them with a list of exactly what they're going to need to get the job done. They get a case manager. There's myself and two other attorneys. So they have a whole team. We really guide them to that finish line. So I think their biggest fear is, the unknown, not knowing what the steps are, not knowing what's going to happen or what they need to do or the risk involved.
And if I can,
sorry, I can chime in there. The other fear is it's a new country.
Mhm.
What are the accounting laws? What are the tax laws? How do I purchase a place? How do I finance? Which you get a lot of, I'm sure it's part of
Yeah.
your coaching course.
Yeah.
But we either do everything in house or we have trusted professionals that can assist with all of these things. And I basically tell any family that's looking to do an E2, much like what we did, is you need to understand what the requirements are. If you're good with those requirements, then you have to make the decision, yes, we're doing this, or no, we're not. If the answer is yes, then it's important to get us on board right away because we literally give you a step by step guide and we assist you step by step. There are a lot of firms who, will take you on as a client, even though maybe it's not going to be the best outcome. And the reason we brought in the money back guarantee was we don't do that. We make sure that a petition doesn't leave this office unless we feel pretty certain it's going to get approved. And so that's why the money back guarantee came in to let clients know we're in this with you. We want to get you to the finish line. We do not want to mess up our 100% approval. And so just it's kind of like a leap of faith. Let us guide you, let us get you there.
Well, I think that's with everything. Is if you can make an alignment, and I always am weary about that. Even when I see property management contracts that aren't based on like rent collected, if you make it so that everybody wins at the same time, then you all have the same sort of alignment, the same goal, the same. You guys are going to want to get the approval just as much as the person who's wanting to get the approval because it has to. It all lines up, which makes a lot of sense, right?
100%.
I know whenever I did my E2 visa, I did a business plan and we created it as a new company. Is a business plan always going to be a requirement? Or if you were just say buying a franchise or something else, is a business plan always going to be a requirement in order to be able to do this?
Yes, because the business plan is a 5-year forecast as to what is this business going to look like year 1 through 5. Is there going to be growth? We have to show that, maybe around year 2, you're hiring at least one US employee. So these are all things that they're going to look at because you got to keep in mind, they don't want an E2 business that's going to be a self-employed business. Like it's just going to hire you.
Yeah.
So that's the business plan is really important. It has to be E2 specific and it has to touch on really important factors because what we want to do, we had a client go this morning. She was so prepared. We had given her everything. Our petition was so complete. They asked her 3 questions, 3 simple questions, and she was granted the visa. So what we want to do is make sure that it's comprehensive. Because at the visa appointment, if they're fiddling through and trying to figure out what your business is, then we're going to have an issue.
Yeah.
So the business plan and the rest of the petition has to be concise to the point and it has to, drive the message home that we've met all the criteria.
Yeah, and it's not something that we are just recommending. If you go to the consular website, it's actually a listed requirement for the documents that they're going to require as part of your petition. So if we go ahead and submit that without a business plan, they'll turn around and say, no, we need a business plan, right? So very important aspect of it for sure.
And if you're say doing like I was doing a new business that was real estate related, if you were going to just buy a franchise, for instance, is that something like the franchise would provide, like kind of the business plan of how it would go, or would that even be useful if they did, because it may not be specific to the E2 and hiring employees and the different steps for it?
So usually the franchise does provide you with a business plan, but it's typically like 50, 60 pages or more. So it's more of an in-depth business plan. Our business plans are 10 to 15 pages max because there's a page limit for the amount of supporting documents we can send into the consulate. So it's got to be straight to the point and all about E2, the investor, really E2 specific.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that does make a lot of sense because they're going to be talking about how to build the
Right.
run the business more than how a business runs. If
Right.
that makes any sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, you guys have been doing this for a while. What kind of businesses have you found that, Canadians purchase or build when they're going to the U.S.? What kind of things are people interested in to go down to Florida or wherever they're looking at in the U.S.?
When investing in the U.S., Canadians make so many small mistakes. They assume everything's the same. They don't understand all the intricacies. If you just would like a free guide on some of the common mistakes that I see Canadians making, just go to CanadianInvestingInTheUSA.com/mistakes and check out my free guide. And while you're there, if you want to book a phone call, I'm open. Me personally, not some other person. I'm personally open to doing a 15-minute phone call with anyone, answering some questions, sharing some experiences. So if that's of interest to you, please go ahead and do so.
Yeah, it's been a wide range of businesses. Property management's pretty popular.
Okay.
A lot of people like and want to do that. We've seen all types of service businesses, pool routes, window companies, some construction-related companies, a lot of professionals who are setting up maybe consulting, architect offices, things like that. It's really a wide gamut. You can, for the E2, you can start up a business. You can purchase an existing business. So if they want to buy something that's already up and running and cash flowing, we connect them with a broker in the area that they want to live and work in. And sometimes what's happened too is clients are maybe looking for a specific type of business they think they want to do. Yeah. And then when they start looking, it's like, hey, I never thought of that. There's, for example, in Florida, there are home watch businesses, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of properties are empty most of the year. And to meet the requirements of insurance, these properties have to be visited once a week or once every 2 weeks, depending on your policy. So, we have clients who purchased a home watch business and then they're going to add to it. They're going to add maintenance services, cleaning services. It was kind of like their base. So we've seen everything and anything in between, depending on. And the nice thing about the E2 visa is there isn't a specific type of business. The only caveat to that is it can't be a solely online business.
There's another one too. It can't be related to marijuana or CBD or anything like that.
And have you found, which you may not know the answer to this, but when people go down there and they start a business, do they ever, the business change? So that, hey, they were planning to do, I don't know, say they're trying to do a property management company, but over the course of the 5 years, it turned into, say, a flipping company. So they're flipping houses instead. Do you find that many people do that? And would that hurt their renewal at the end whenever they see that they're doing something different? Or actually, I know somebody who went down there to do a note investing business on an E2, and now they're a realtor instead, for instance.
So that's a very good question. What they're looking for is that you're still in business. So let's say, like your friend who's now a realtor, right? That's going to be a bit challenging because that's self-employment, right? There's been no job creation, I'm assuming, unless that person has assistants or has hired other people. And they have to be able to show profitability. Okay, so, and not just a little bit, it has to be enough to sustain their family, for example, while in the US. I guess what the consulate does not want is for you to keep renewing a failing business and just kind of hang your hat on, this is what I'm doing, but it's not really generating a profit or creating any jobs. Now, if you do get to the end of the 5 years and you're like, okay, this isn't working, maybe you've fallen on some hard times, you would need to reinvest at the time that you would go for the renewal. So that's the only kind of condition there.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the other thing, let's say you buy a restaurant and then you decide to do catering from the restaurant, and then the catering business is going really well, and you decide you don't want the restaurant, you're going to open food trucks. Like if it's all within the same kind of general umbrella, and it's increasing to your profitability and it's a wise business move, then you can continue to do that. You want to stay in the general
That makes sense.
business.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And do you find, like, even just as I brought up renewals, if you don't ever move to the U.S. during that 5-year period, does that hurt you at all?
No,
No.
at all.
You know what we're seeing a lot of too, Glenn? We're seeing people who have fairly large businesses in Canada. They open up in the US. The other cool thing about the E2 is you can hire E2 essential employees from your home country.
It's kind of like a
So what we've
sponsorship
seen
kind of
is-
thing, or
It's not a sponsorship. It's really simple and straightforward.
okay,
So let's say you have a construction business in Canada and you open one in the US under E2. Now, the owner of that business can go back and forth if they choose. They can live here if they want to. But we have some who are not willing to move at this time because their business is so big in Canada
yeah,
that it doesn't make sense. And what they've done, and we've helped them, is they bring some essential employees from Canada to the US side to build their US business as E2 employees. And then once they get going in the US, maybe their long-term plan is maybe 5 years down the road. If they can build up the US side of things, then they'll either, keep Canada, the Canadian business, or maybe they'll get rid of the Canadian business and then migrate over to the US. So we've seen a lot of that as well.
One important thing to add to that too is it doesn't have to be a big company. I've seen a lot of people wanting to do this with other family members whose experience matches what they're doing here in the US. So let's say, for example, I was going to open a law firm under E2, right? And my mom, Rocky, has all kinds of business management experience. And so I'm going to give my mom an E2 employee visa based on my E2 for her to come and manage my firm, right? So that's what we see as well.
okay.
Just a lot of people who want to bring down someone from Canada.
A lot of people don't know about the E2 employee option. It's a really good option, actually.
It makes a lot of sense, but I'm thinking if I was going to do that, I would definitely call you guys first before I get myself in a lot of trouble. Especially just, I don't know. I feel like there's a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that.
Right. Yeah, we would file that petition for you
Okay.
and guide, make sure that that's accurate as well.
Yeah, exactly. Before I let you guys go, was there like other things about the E2 or about immigrating to the U.S. that I should have asked?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are afraid right now, and we were talking about this earlier. They're afraid of the border. They're afraid of coming here as a Canadian. And I can tell you firsthand, I'm a Canadian. Like I said, I've been living in Florida for 8 years. There's been no change to the treatment of us, to the opportunities. E2s are being processed like never before, actually. Last month was our busiest month for E2. Like my mom said this morning, we had a client go, they asked her 3 questions. She's a Canadian. So I think there's a lot of stigma around the border right now and people being afraid of that. And if I could tell anything to my Canadian brothers and sisters, don't be afraid. Nothing really has changed. And I know there's a lot of media saying otherwise, but do your own homework, talk to real people who are having real experiences, and you'll see the flip side of that.
Yeah, the people who had trouble at the border, there was a reason they had trouble at the border besides they had other issues going on. It wasn't a straight, it's not something to be scared of the way that they've blown it up.
No, absolutely not. We've had clients coming and going. We've personally, family, friends, 0 issues at all.
Awesome. If people wanted to get a hold of your firm, wanted to, you mentioned a consultation, is there like a way to book that, or how do they get a hold of you in order to even have that conversation to figure out if this is something that could work for them?
Sure. We have a fun website called movetotheusa.ca where they can, on that page, sign up for a 20-minute call. So they'll get access to the calendar. They can pick a day and time that works for them, or they can shoot us an email. Mom, what email are we using for leads right now? This is her.
We have intake@maimonelegal.com. Glen, we'll send you everything so you can
send
add
it to me.
it.
I'll throw it in the bottom of the show notes. So just like scroll down below the AI description of our call.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we welcome any type of, we give complimentary 20-minute intake calls. And then if you want to meet with one of the attorneys, that's a paid consultation. But we're here to answer your questions and, make sure that you feel comfortable if this is something that you need our assistance with.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show. I'm sure you get some phone calls from this. And like always, I appreciate your time and I love catching up.
Our pleasure, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Okay, have a great day.
That was a nice video. Bye.